Last week, I stood in the grocery store parking lot holding two small bags. Tomatoes, a handful of blueberries, one lemon, some fresh herbs, $47. I sat in my car for a moment and just looked at that receipt, because here's what was going through my mind. I have a back porch. I have containers sitting right there, some of them empty, and I have 25 years of knowing exactly what grows, what produces, and what will quietly fill your kitchen without ever asking you to open your wallet again. So why am I still paying these prices? Here's what most people don't realize. You do not need a yard. You do not need a big budget. And you do not need to be an experienced gardener to grow real, meaningful food right where you live on a patio, a balcony, even a sunny windowsill. Today, I'm going to walk you through 15 fruit plants that thrive in containers. Some are beginner-friendly. Some will surprise you with how much they produce. And a few of them, if you let them, will replace a meaningful chunk of your weekly grocery bill entirely. And the plant, at number 3 on this list, I've had one sitting on my back porch for 11 years. It cost me $4, and it has paid me back more times than I can count. Stay with me. You'll want to hear that one. Now, before we get into the list, I want to be upfront with you about something. I'm not sponsored by a nursery. I'm not being paid by a fertilizer company. There are no affiliate links driving what I recommend here. I'm just someone who has been growing food in containers for over 25 years, on back porches, on apartment balconies, in small suburban yards where the garden space was barely the size of a parking spot. Everything on this list I have grown myself. Some of them I'm still growing today. I started Easy Garden 1 because I got tired of watching people overspend at big box stores on plants that didn't suit their space, their budget, or their life. And I got tired of seeing good gardeners give up because nobody gave them honest, practical advice from the beginning. That's what this is. No fluff. No filler. Just what works from someone who has made every mistake, so you don't have to. All right? Let's get into it. All right? 15 plants. Let's start at the bottom of the list and work our way up. And I want you to notice something as we go through these. Every single plant I'm about to share grows beautifully in a container. Some of them actually prefer it. A container gives you control over the soil, the drainage, the placement, and when you have control, you have consistency. And consistency is what puts food on your table. Let's begin. Hasson 5, the herb trio basil, mint, and chives. I'm starting here because this is where I tell everyone to start. Not because herbs are boring, but because they are the fastest proof that container growing works. Within 30 days of planting, you will be harvesting. And that first harvest, even if it's just a handful of basil leaves, does something to you. It makes the whole idea real. Now, let's talk money, because that's what this video is about. A small bunch of fresh basil at the grocery store runs about $3. A pot of mint, the same. Fresh chives, another $2 to $3. If you're cooking at home regularly, you're buying these 2, maybe 3 times a week. That's somewhere between $300 and $500 a year on herbs. Herbs that take almost no space, almost no effort, and almost no money to grow yourself. A 6-inch pot on a windowsill, a little morning light, water when the soil feels dry. That's the entire maintenance plan for mint. Hope's tip: start with mint first. I say this because mint is practically impossible to kill. It grows fast enough to give you confidence. And once you taste fresh mint in your water or your cooking, you will never go back to buying it in a plastic clamshell again. One word of warning, though mint wants to take over: keep it in its own pot. Don't let it share with anything else, or it will bully every neighbor it has. Hasson 4. Cherry tomatoes, Tumbling Tom, or Tiny Tim, if herbs are the starter. Cherry tomatoes are the moment people get hooked. There is something deeply satisfying about walking out to your patio, picking a handful of warm cherry tomatoes straight off the vine, and eating them right there. No refrigerator, no plastic packaging, just a tomato that actually tastes like a tomato. And the savings are real. Organic cherry tomatoes at most grocery stores are running $4 to $6 a pint right now. A single 5-gallon container with a Tumbling Tom plant will produce far more than that across an entire summer season. If you're in an apartment with only a balcony, look for Tiny Tim specifically. It stays compact under 12 inches tall, and it does not need staking or a cage. It will sit happily in a 10-inch pot and produce all season long. Hope's tip tomatoes are sun plants. They want at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. If your balcony faces north or sits in heavy shade, tomatoes will disappoint you. And that's not the tomato's fault. Be honest about your light situation before you plant. If you have the sun, though, few things will reward you faster. Has sown 3 lettuce and salad greens. This one surprises people every time. Most folks think of lettuce as a garden crop, something you need rows and soil beds for. But lettuce has shallow roots. It doesn't need depth, it needs width. A wide, shallow container, about 8 to 10 inches deep, is actually perfect for a cut-and-come-again lettuce setup. Here's how it works. You plant a mix of salad greens, loose-leaf varieties like black-seeded Simpson, red sales, or a mesclun blend. You let them grow to about 4 or 5 inches. Then you cut the outer leaves, leave the center growing, and walk back inside with a salad. A week later, you go back and do it again. 1 container, all season, no grocery run for salad greens, at $5 a bag, 2 bags a week. Lettuce alone is costing the average American household over $500 a year. A wide planter, a bag of quality potting mix, and a $3 seed packet can replace most of that. Hope's tip lettuce is a cool season crop. It loves spring and fall, but struggles in the heat of summer. Plant early in the season. Enjoy it through late spring. Then let it go and replant in late August for a fall harvest. In mild climates, you can grow it almost year-round. Don't fight the seasons, work with them. Hasson 2 bush cucumber, Space Master, or bush pickle cucumbers have a reputation for needing space, and full-size vining cucumbers do. But bush varieties were bred specifically for small spaces, and they perform beautifully in containers. Spacemaster is my go-to recommendation. It stays compact, produces consistently, and the cucumbers come in at a size that's perfect for slicing or pickling. Bush pickle is another excellent choice if you enjoy making your own pickles, which, by the way, is one of the most satisfying things you can do with a container garden. A 5-gallon pot with a small trellis or tomato cage for support. And you have a cucumber plant that will produce all summer. Organic cucumbers at Whole Foods right now are running $2 to $3 each. Grow your own, and that cost disappears entirely. Hope's tip cucumbers are thirsty plants. In a container, they dry out faster than they would in the ground. Check the soil daily during hot weather and water deeply when the top inch feels dry. Inconsistent watering is the #1 reason container cucumbers fail. It leads to bitter fruit and blossom drop. Stay consistent, and the plant will take care of the rest. Known hot peppers, cayenne, or jalapeno. Here is something most people don't know about pepper plants. They are perennials in their natural climate. A pepper plant does not die at the end of summer. It keeps growing, year after year. The only reason we treat them as annuals in most of the United States is because of frost. But in a container, you can simply bring them inside when temperatures drop. Keep them in a cool garage or a bright window through winter, and bring them back out in spring. I have a cayenne pepper plant that is 4 years old. 4 years from one purchase. The first year, it cost me $3 at a local nursery. Every year since then, it has cost me nothing but a little water and a bit of fertilizer. And every summer it gives me more peppers than I can use fresh, so I dry them, crush them, and I haven't bought red pepper flakes in years. Hope's tip: when you bring your pepper plant inside for winter, cut it back by about 1/3. It looks brutal. The plant doesn't mind. Come spring, new growth will emerge quickly, and that second-year plant will often outperform the first. The root system is already established. It knows what it's doing. Now we're getting into the plants that will genuinely change your grocery bill. Not just trim it, change it. The quick wins. We just covered herbs, tomatoes, lettuce. Those save you real money. But the plants in this group operate on a different level. These are the ones where the math starts to get interesting, where you sit down one afternoon, look at what you've harvested over a season, and realize that a few containers on your porch just replaced a meaningful chunk of what you used to hand over at the checkout line every single week. And I mentioned plant number 3 earlier, the one I've had for 11 years, the one that cost me $4. That's coming up very soon. But first, let me show you why this middle group is where most people's container gardens quietly become something they can't imagine living without. Zero strawberries. Let me paint you a picture. It's a Saturday morning in late June. You walk out to your patio in your slippers, coffee in hand, and you pick a small bowl of strawberries straight from a hanging basket by your door, still warm from the morning sun. No pesticides, no plastic clamshell, no $4 price tag. That is not a fantasy. That is what a $10 hanging basket of ever-bearing strawberries looks like by its second month. Strawberries are one of the most naturally suited fruits for container growing. Their root systems are shallow. They spread through runners that cascade beautifully over the edge of a hanging basket or a tiered planter. And ever-bearing varieties like Seascape or Albion produce continuously from June all the way through October, rather than giving you one heavy flush and disappearing. Organic strawberries at the grocery store are running $5 to $6 a pint right now. If your family eats strawberries regularly through the summer, you are looking at $300 to $400 a year just on that one fruit. A tiered strawberry planter, 12 plants, and a bag of quality potting mix will run you around $40 to set up. By midsummer, it has already started paying you back. Hope's Tip Everbearing is the key word. Look for it on the label. Day-neutral varieties like Albion and Seascape are my personal favorites because they produce regardless of day length. They just keep going. In the first season, pinch off the earliest flowers to let the plant establish itself. I know it's hard to do. Do it anyway. The plant will reward your patience with a far stronger and longer harvest. #9. Dwarf Blueberries. Top Hat or Sunshine Blue. I want to be honest with you about blueberries right up front, because I think honesty is what makes advice actually useful. Blueberries are an investment. Year 1. You will get a small handful of fruit. Year 2. A little more. Year 3. And this is where it gets good. A well-established dwarf blueberry in a 15-gallon container will produce more fruit than most families can eat fresh. And it will keep doing that for 15 to 20 years. Now consider that organic blueberries at most American grocery stores are currently $6 to $8 a pint. If you eat them regularly on yogurt, in smoothies, just by the handful, you are spending $400 or more a year on one fruit. One fruit that, after a 3-year establishment period, you could be growing yourself for almost nothing. Top Hat is my recommendation for smaller spaces. It stays under 2 feet tall and fits on a balcony without overwhelming the space. Sunshine Blue grows a little larger but handles heat better and is more forgiving for beginners. Both need acidic soil, so use a potting mix specifically formulated for blueberries or add sulfur to lower your pH. This is the one non-negotiable with blueberries. Get the soil right and the plant almost takes care of itself. Hope's Tip plant. 2 different varieties, side by side. Blueberries produce significantly better with cross-pollination. Even the varieties labeled self-fertile. 2 15-gallon containers. 2 varieties, and you have turned a good harvest into a great one. The containers can sit right next to each other on a patio. They don't need distance. Just proximity. #8. Dwarf Meyer Lemon. If there is one container fruit plant that surprises people more than any other, it is the Meyer lemon. People assume citrus is complicated. They assume it needs a warm climate, a lot of space, specialized care, and standard citrus does have its demands, but the Meyer lemon, a natural cross between a lemon and a mandarin orange, is a genuinely different plant. It is smaller, more forgiving, more cold-tolerant than most citrus, and it adapts to container life with a willingness that feels almost generous. In USDA zones 8 and above, a Maya lemon in a 15 to 20-gallon container can live outside year-round. In colder zones, and most of the country is colder zones, you bring it inside before the first frost. Place it near your brightest window and bring it back out in spring. The tree doesn't love the transition, but it handles it, and what it gives you in return is lemons. Real, fragrant, thin-skinned Maya lemons that taste nothing like the waxy, thick-rinded things sitting in a grocery store bin. A single Maya lemon at Whole Foods is running $1 to $2 right now. A mature tree in a container will give you 50 to 200 lemons a year, depending on the size of the pot and how well it's fed. Hope's tip: feed your Maya lemon with a citrus-specific fertilizer every 6 weeks during the growing season. This is not optional. It is the single most important thing you can do for a container citrus tree. Nitrogen keeps the leaves deep green and the tree strong. Without consistent feeding, the leaves yellow, flowering slows, and the whole plant starts to look tired. Give it what it needs, and it will give you lemons almost year-round. #7. Fig Chicago Hardy, or Petite Negra. I have a particular affection for figs, not just because they're delicious though they are, but because in 25 years of container gardening, I have never grown a fruit tree with less drama. No serious pest problems, no complicated spray schedules, no mysterious diseases that show up overnight and take half your crop. The fig just grows. It produces. It asks very little and delivers more than you expect. Fresh figs at specialty grocery stores and farmers markets are running $5 to $8 for a small half pint. That price reflects how perishable they are. Figs don't travel well, which is why the ones in stores are often mediocre. Grow your own, and you eat them at peak ripeness. Straight from the tree. Still warm. There is no comparison. Chicago Hardy is my recommendation for anyone in the northern half of the country. It can handle temperatures down to around 0 degrees Fahrenheit with protection, which makes it one of the most cold-tolerant figs available. Petite Negra stays smaller and is an excellent choice for a patio or balcony where space is genuinely limited. Hope's tip: figs in containers need one thing above all else: a pot that is sized up gradually. Start in a 15-gallon container, and when the tree becomes root-bound, you'll know because growth slows and it dries out faster than usual. Move it up to a 25-gallon. Figs that are slightly root-bound actually fruit better than those in oversized pots. This is one of those cases where the plant's preference and the container gardener's space constraints happen to align perfectly. #6. Dwarf Peach Bonanza, or El Dorado. A peach tree on your patio sounds like something that belongs on a magazine cover. The reality is more practical than that and more achievable than most people think. Dwarf peach varieties like Bonanza and El Dorado were bred specifically for container growing. They stay under 6 feet tall. They are self-fertile, meaning you only need one tree, and a mature tree in a 20 to 25-gallon container will produce 50 or more peaches in a good season. Organic peaches at American grocery stores are currently $2 to $3 each. Do that math with 50 peaches, and you are looking at $100 to $150 of fruit from a single container that, after the initial purchase, costs you almost nothing to maintain year after year. Hope's tip: pruning is non-negotiable with container peaches. Every late winter, before new growth begins, cut the tree back firmly, remove about a third of last year's growth. I know it feels aggressive. It is aggressive. But a peach tree that is not pruned becomes a tangle of unproductive wood that shades itself and stops fruiting well. Prune hard. Fertilize in spring, and thin the fruit when it's marble-sized. Remove enough so that the remaining peaches are spaced about 6 inches apart. What you lose in quantity, you gain back many times over in size and flavor. All right, top 5. I call these the game changers, and I mean that seriously. Not as a marketing phrase. These are the plants that, once established, stop feeling like a hobby and start feeling like a system. A quiet, low-maintenance system that just keeps working in the background of your life. And plant number 3, the one I've been mentioning since the beginning of this video, the $4 plant that has been on my back porch for 11 years. We are almost there. But first, let's talk about number 5. #5 dwarf apple colonnade, or urban apple. Most people hear apple tree and immediately think not possible. Too big, too complicated, too much space, and they would be right about a standard apple tree. But columnar apples, sometimes sold under the name urban apple or colonnade, are an entirely different thing. They grow in a narrow, vertical column. No wide-spreading branches. No canopy that swallows a patio. Just a slim, upright form, rarely more than 2 feet wide, that can reach 6 to 8 feet tall in a large container and produce 30 to 50 apples a season once established. A 20-gallon container is sufficient. 2 containers side by side, because apples need cross-pollination to fruit, take up roughly the same footprint as a small patio table. Plant 2 different columnar varieties. Place them next to each other, and what you have is a productive little orchard in the space most people use for a couple of chairs. Organic apples at American grocery stores are currently running $2 to $3 each. 50 apples a season from 2 containers is $100 or more in fruit. And apple trees, once established, are remarkably long-lived. You are not buying this tree once. You are making a one-time investment that pays you back every single fall for decades. Hope's tip: choose your 2 varieties carefully. You need them to bloom at the same time for cross-pollination to work. When you're buying, ask specifically whether the 2 varieties you've chosen are compatible pollinators. Any good nursery staff member will know the answer. If you're buying online, the product description will usually tell you, get this right at the beginning and you won't have to think about it again. #4. Thornless blackberries. Prime arc freedom. Blackberries have a reputation that precedes them, and most of it involves thorns, tangled canes, and a plant that takes over everything it touches. Prime arc freedom changes all of that. It is thornless, genuinely thornless. Not just mostly thornless, it is self-fertile, meaning one plant produces a full crop without needing a companion, and it is a primocane variety, which means it fruits on first-year canes. You plant it, it grows new canes, and those same canes fruit in the fall of their first year. You do not wait. You do not wonder. You plant, You tend, and by autumn you are picking blackberries. In a large container, 15 to 20 gallons with a simple trellis or a few bamboo stakes for support. Primark Freedom will give you £1 or more of blackberries per plant in a good season. Fresh, organic blackberries at the grocery store are running $5 to $7 a pint. A pound of blackberries is roughly 2 pints. Do that math across a full harvest season, and this single container is producing real, meaningful value. Hope's tip. After the canes finish fruiting in fall, cut them down to the ground. I know it looks dramatic. The plant is completely fine. New canes will emerge the following spring. And those new canes will fruit again that same fall. This cycle grow, fright, cut, repeat is the entire management plan for primocane blackberries. It is one of the most forgiving pruning systems in all of container gardening. #3 dwarf pomegranate, wonderful or nana, the hero plant. 11 years ago, I was walking through a local nursery in early autumn, and I spotted a small pomegranate tree on a clearance rack near the back. It looked rough. The leaves were sparse. The trunk was thin, and someone had knocked the pot over at some point. It was marked down to $4. Nobody wanted it. I bought it. I took it home, repotted it into a 15-gallon container with fresh potting mix, placed it on my back porch where it would get full sun, and I gave it water and a little time. That tree is still on my back porch today, every autumn, without fail. It gives me 15 to 20 pomegranates, deep red, heavy, full of juice. You know what pomegranates cost at the grocery store right now? $3 to $4 each. Sometimes more for the large ones. 15 pomegranates at $4 each, that is $60 of fruit. From a tree I paid $4 for. 11 years ago. That is what I mean when I talk about container gardening as a long-term investment. The pomegranate is one of the most underrated container fruit trees in existence. It is drought tolerant, genuinely drought tolerant. Not just marketing language, which means in a container it is actually more forgiving of missed watering than almost any other fruit tree on this list. It is resistant to most common pests and diseases. It produces fruit that is genuinely expensive at retail. And it lives for a very long time. Wonderful is the standard variety large fruit, deep red arils. Excellent flavor. Nana is a true dwarf that stays under 3 feet and is perfect for a smaller patio or a balcony with weight restrictions. Both are beautiful plants. Even when they're not fruiting, the flowers are a brilliant orange-red that light up a porch in early summer. Hope's tip: underwatering a pomegranate is forgivable. Overwatering is not. These trees want to dry out slightly between waterings. If the soil stays consistently wet, the roots will suffer and the fruit will split before it ripens. Water deeply. Then let the container dry out. That rhythm. Deep water. Then rest is the entire secret to a healthy pomegranate in a pot. #2 dwarf avocado. Holiday or words. I am going to be completely honest with you about avocados, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve enthusiasm. Dwarf avocados are not easy. They are not beginner plants. They want warmth, consistent moisture, excellent drainage, and a lot of patience before they fruit. If you are in a cold climate, keeping one alive through winter indoors is genuinely challenging. So, why is it at number 2? Because when a dwarf avocado in a container finally begins to produce, and holiday and Wurtz varieties will produce in a large container with proper care, what you are harvesting is one of the most expensive fruits in the American grocery store. Organic avocados are running $2 to $3 each right now. A productive container avocado can give you dozens of fruit a season, but more than the money, there is something deeply satisfying about growing a fruit that everyone around you assumes is impossible to grow at home. It is the plant that makes people stop and stare when they visit your porch. It is the one that makes you feel, genuinely, like you know something most people don't. Hope's tip: if you decide to try an avocado, start with Wurtz, also sold as Little Cado. It is the most forgiving of the dwarf varieties, the most cold-tolerant, and the most reliably productive in a container. Give it your largest pot, at least 25 gallons, your sunniest spot, and fertilize consistently through the growing season, and manage your expectations in year 1. This is a long game. Play it anyway. Hasson, Calamondin orange, the Hasson plant. I saved this one for last. Not because it is the most dramatic, not because it produces the largest fruit or commands the highest price at the grocery store. I saved it for last because in 25 years of growing food in containers, no single plant has been more consistently present in my life, more reliably productive, or more genuinely useful in my kitchen than this one. The Calamondin orange is a small citrus tree, a natural hybrid between a mandarin and a kumquat, and it does something that no other citrus plant I have ever grown can claim. It fruits continuously, not seasonally, not in one heavy flush, followed by months of nothing. Continuously, right now. On the tree, I have growing indoors near my brightest south-facing window. There are flowers opening, small green fruit developing, and ripe orange fruit ready to pick, all at the same time, all on the same tree. The fruit is small, about the size of a large marble, and intensely tart. You use it the way you would use a lemon or a lime, a squeeze over fish, stirred into a dressing, dropped into a glass of water. The flavor is brighter and more complex than a standard lemon, and the tree produces so continuously that I have not bought lemons or limes at the grocery store in years. It tolerates indoor light better than any other citrus variety. It handles the dry air of a heated winter home better than a Meyer lemon. It asks for very little, and it gives back without interruption. Month after month, season after season. Hope's tip: place your Calamondin in your brightest window through winter south-facing if you have it. Rotate the pot a quarter turn every few weeks, so all sides of the tree receive light evenly. Feed it with citrus fertilizer every 6 weeks year-round. Not just in the growing season, because this tree never fully stops producing and it needs consistent nutrition to keep going. If you only grow one plant from this entire list, grow this one. I have never once regretted it. Now let's talk about what this actually means for your wallet. I want to give you a real number, not an inflated promise, not a best-case scenario pulled from a perfect growing season in a perfect climate. An honest, conservative estimate, based on what a reasonably attentive container gardener can realistically expect. If you grew just 5 plants from this list, a herb trio on your windowsill, a container of cherry tomatoes, a hanging basket of strawberries, a Maya lemon, and a pot of blueberries, here is what the math looks like. Herbs save you roughly $200 a year. Cherry tomatoes through summer, another 150. Strawberries across a full ever-bearing season, 300. A productive Maya lemon, 150. Blueberries by year 3, 400. That is over $1,000 a year from 5 containers. And here is the part that most people don't fully appreciate until they've been doing this for a few seasons. The cost doesn't stay the same every year. It goes down. The plants are already there. The containers are already there. The soil gets amended, not replaced. Year 2 costs you far less than year 1. Year 3 costs you almost nothing. This is not a hobby that drains your retirement savings. Done right, it quietly adds back to them. I know what some of you are thinking right now. This all sounds wonderful. But where do I actually start? Here is my honest answer. Based on where you are. If you have a patio or a small suburban yard, start with the herb trio, cherry tomatoes, and strawberries. Budget around $50 to $70 for containers. Potting mix and plants. You will be harvesting within 30 to 60 days. Once those are established and you feel confident, add blueberries and a Maya lemon. Let the system grow with you. If you have only a balcony or an apartment windowsill, start with herbs and lettuce indoors, and add a calamondin orange near your brightest window. These 3 will work in genuinely limited light and limited space. They will prove to you that this is possible where you live, and that proof matters more than anything else in the beginning. If you are ready to invest for the long term, add a pomegranate, a fig, and dwarf blueberries to whatever foundation you've already built. These are the plants that compound over time, slow to establish. Yes, but once they are settled into their containers and into your routine, they become the backbone of a container garden that produces serious food, serious savings, and something that feels genuinely like abundance. Start small. Stay consistent. Let the garden grow at its own pace. That is the only rule that has never failed me in 25 years. 15 plants, 15 containers, 15 quiet arguments against the idea that you need a yard, a big budget, or a lifetime of gardening experience to grow real food where you live. I want to leave you with something I've said to every person who has ever stood in their first container garden, looked at a single small plant in a pot, and wondered if it was worth the effort. That plant doesn't know what your bank account looks like. It doesn't know how big your porch is or whether you've ever grown anything before in your life. It just knows whether you showed up, whether you gave it water, whether you paid attention. Gardening has always been one of the most honest relationships I know. You give it consistency and care, and it gives you back something real. something you can hold in your hand, put on your table, and share with the people you love. That is not nothing. In a world where everything feels more expensive and more complicated every year, that is actually quite a lot. If this video was helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe to Easy Garden 1 and hit the notification bell. Next week, we are talking about the 5 biggest container mistakes that kill plants before they ever get a chance and how to avoid every single one of them from the very beginning. And if you know someone, a neighbor, a friend, a family member who is tired of grocery store prices and has a porch they're not using, share this video with them. The garden has room for everyone. I'll see you next week.